Hello, welcome to Black Men Speak. I'm your co-host J.R. Stewart.
And good evening, everyone. I'm your co host, Tommy Duncan.
Want to give a big shout out to Liquid for providing our theme music. And if you haven't already, please like, share, and subscribe. Not necessarily in that order, but we do need the help to grow our channel. So, Tom, what's the topic for tonight, man? What insights are we going to share, and what problems are we going to dive into?
Well, I think kind of pulling from the last part of our conversation last week, we were going to talk about the current state of the black economy in America.
Okay. Well, is it a booming black economy or is it a dooming black economy? I mean,
You know,
are we
you know,
headed for the mountain or are we going over the cliff?
that's a good question, Jimmy. I mean, it's the very early part of 2021. We just came out of one of the most catastrophic periods in American history last year that impacted us economically, healthcare wise, and socially last year with the healthcare pandemic with COVID-19 that impacted a lot of people, especially people's incomes and businesses and small businesses in particular. So I think we are in a state of transition and flux, and the jury is still out in terms of boom or bust. One thing we know is that America, as it was before the pandemic, will not be the same after we get back to the new norm.
Okay, Tom, that may be a good thing for us if we learn to master the new paradigm. Um, it used to be location, location, location was the golden rule for business and for real estate. But now, when things are going online, everything is being delivered. You have the chance to build a website that equals your rival, and no one
Right.
knows to know that you has to know that you're a mom and pop shop when you can set up a shop on Amazon or some of these other places. You can drop ship. So this should be an opportunity for us to help level the playing field. What say
I would
you?
agree, Jimmy. I would say, Jimmy, you're correct. I mean, when we were younger, I'll put it that way, younger, and growing up, I mean, you had to have access to a massive amount of capital in order to build a brick and mortar location. In order to do business, you had to pay money to either get on TV, radio, or on billboards somehow in order to advertise. And now, Jimmy, to your point, you can literally create a business virtually
Yes.
online. You can use social media for a very low cost in order to market and advertise your business. And there are a lot of creative ways now that you can really begin to build not only the infrastructure of your business, but secure customers as well. This is the thing though. So last year, as we know, if you look at most resources, there were somewhere around 2 million black owned businesses,
Right.
up through last year. About 1.9 million of those 2 million businesses were pretty much, one person shops. About
Yes.
100,000 of them, had, a paid employee to some degree. Now, with the pandemic, that had a pretty significant impact economically on all businesses. But of course, it typically had a double impact on black businesses because you know what? If um, if America catches a cold, then the black community catches the flu at a minimum. So I was reading a Forbes article a little bit earlier that said that quite possibly, now this article came out in the middle of last year, that they were estimating that quite possibly half of small businesses, black owned businesses, could not come back or maybe not weather the storm after the business. We won't know for sure, probably until the next year or so. But all that being said is one, most of our businesses aren't as well capitalized.
Right.
Number two, they don't usually get the type of funding, whether it's from a traditional bank or from other resources that other
Right.
mainstream businesses do. And then, unfortunately, Jimmy, as we found out late last year, when a lot of the PPP, money came back from the government, our businesses were the last to get it, and
That
of
is
course,
true.
our businesses were the smallest ones and the least funded.
Well, that is true, Tom. You said it last to get it. I know so many small black businesses that got nothing. They filled out paperwork, they applied, but like you said, It's not even sometimes that we're the last in line and get very little. Sometimes time we get very nothing or we get
Yeah,
nothing. Um, so you can quantize nothing however you want to. It still ends up being the same nothing. So
absolutely,
uh,
absolutely. And before we get too far into this, what we do need to do is, for those of you who may be listening to us, if we have some folks who have something they'd like to say or maybe contribute or add or questions, we do have a call in line 972-497-2280. And I'll repeat that, 972-497-2280. I don't know if you have that on the screen. We may have some entrepreneurs,
yes.
business owners out there who may have some thoughts and who may have their own stories over the last year as to what they've seen.
Well, we have a KMAC on the chat screen that
Okay.
says, "Hey guys, we have to pivot to survive." So that is true. K Mac, if you're out there, if you want to join the conversation, give us a call if you can. 972-497-2280. Um, but I'm sorry, but K Mac is correct, Tom. We do have to pivot, um, and I like to see us start thinking beyond hair care and barbecue. Um,
Well, Jimmy, you,
we
you bring
need
up a
so
very
many
good
other
point.
services and products in the black community that we can provide. We need fresh food. We need bakery shops, donut shops. We need butcher shops. Why is it you can't find any of these services or products being sold in the black community?
That's
So,
true.
we need more than just chicken places, barbecue, and some hair care in the black community. So we can do more, Tom. And my challenge has always been the same: the black middle class has to step up. We already
Absolutely.
know that the super wealthy among us are not going to put their money back in the neighborhoods they grew up in, but that doesn't mean that the black middle class can't step up. And here's the other thing, Tom. We cannot be starting over from every generation. Every generation of black people cannot be trying to start from scratch and expect to catch up. At some point, we have to pool our resources. And we know what we have to do: pool our resources and transfer wealth going forward. Our kids cannot be starting from scratch. Our grandkids can't be starting from the starting line when everybody else is at the 90-yard line trying to push it in for a touchdown, and we're back at the goalpost at the other side of the field. There's no way we're going to catch up that way. Go ahead.
I would agree, Jimmy. I think you bring up a very good point, and I want to kind of almost stop right there. You talked about the transfer of wealth, and that is huge because what we do understand is that given our torrential history, and I'll put that very delicately, torrential history, it looks like we may have a caller in. So, Jimmy, wait just a
Okay.
second. We have a caller. Hello, this is Black Men Speak.
Oh, thank you. I seem to have some issues dialing in originally. At least I know the number is good and working. Okay.
Good deal. So, what questions or thoughts do you have on our topic of conversation?
Well, I will say that just by observation, anytime I've been on some of the social media sites, it does appear that there are quite a few African Americans currently pivoting, in the current economy. I've seen a
Okay.
lot of them start to do restaurants,
Okay.
catering, even starting, uh, more, even though a lot is going on online with the social media, I do see quite a few businesses, believe it or not, who are opening, even with some brick and mortar stores.
Okay.
No, that's a good thing. And let me ask you this: in terms of what you've seen, out in the general market, I think there's been definitely I don't know if I'll call it a resurgence, but definitely a strong entrance from the mainstream community in supporting black businesses, which has always been a challenge in America in terms of getting funding, in terms of getting support. Are there specific things in particular that you see that will determine whether the state of the black economy and black businesses in general will be able to grow in a sustainable way? Or is this a what we call for
One
lack of a
off.
term, a one-hit show, a one-hit show?
And you know what? I'm not sure, all right, because I will say that, since the SBA has been providing quite a bit of support for those who are currently in business, even some of them who are starting, businesses, that there's been quite a bit of the activity. And I'm not sure if that's the source of these surgeons or not, but I do know, there appears to be so many, restaurants and catering and chefs on the horizon, and I'm thinking, I hope some of these people can cook who are opening up these restaurants and
I hope so too.
and doing these catering, because it appears to be quite a bit out there right now, and maybe because there is a lot of support, which I welcome, and I think it's a good thing that we are finally, putting our money behind our people to support them in whatever the endeavors are.
All right.
Hey Tom, ask the caller if she plans on spending more of her income money with black businesses this year than she did last year.
That's a good question. So the question from Mr. Stewart is, do you? I don't know if you track how much money you spend with black-owned businesses, but do you have a strategy or a target to grow or increase the amount of money you spend with black-owned businesses this year? And how would that work?
No, I have not. I'm not tracking it.
Mhm.
I do search out. If there's some that's doing, certain types of work, I would say. Right now there's quite a bit of, I guess, construction work going on, remodeling work going on, and what have you. And it's quite a few, I think African American as well as others who are currently looking in that area, because there's been so many, homeowners after the hailstorm, after the ice storm, who ended up needing people to actually do the work. So that's another area that actually has been getting quite a bit of attention and what have you. So when it comes to certain ones, I do search them out. I have not earmarked a particular amount or a particular percentage.
Gotcha.
But I am looking in those directions probably a lot more than I have actually in the past.
Well, that's good to know.
That's very good to know. Yes.
We definitely appreciate your thoughts and your contribution. Any other closing words?
No, that's it for the moment.
Okay. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
All right.
So Tom, that's a very good sign. That is, I welcome that. That's is encouraging because I was starting to sour on our recovery. So I'm glad to hear there are people out there that are targeting black-owned businesses, and like you said, she didn't have a dollar amount or a percentage, but it does look like she's making more of an effort this year to do business with black-owned businesses, which is a good sign. And I hope there are more people like her that are doing the same.
Right. And Jimmy, this is the deal, because I know one thing that I do personally when I have to use contractors, whether that's plumbing work or electrical work. It could be masonry work or whatever it is. I always do my best to try to find a contractor who looks like me to do the work, because I know they, of course, need the business, and number
Yes.
two, we need to grow their business. But at the same time, we have to make sure that we hold, those that we do business with accountable as we would anybody else. No hookup. Now, I would say this, and when I say hookup, looking for a discount, because they have to run a business too, and we have
Right.
to make sure that we don't run them out of business
With the
by trying
hookup.
to get all the hookups, and then of course they can't make a profit.
Well, Tom, I do the same. I mean, if I need something, I may put it out for a bid, and I do my absolute best to direct work. Like one time, I hired a moving company, and I used a black-owned business, and of course they were. I don't know if they were doing it on purpose or what, but their price was a lot less than a couple of other bids I got from I presume a white-owned company, and in the end, I ended up giving them the higher rate. I was like, hey, look, here's what your competitors were going to charge, and I was okay with that price. So there's no reason I shouldn't pay you that price, even though you were attempting or you were planning on charging me a lot less. So even when they were trying to look out for me, Tom, I don't know if they were trying to give me the hookup or what, but still, like you said, they have a business to run. They have employees to pay. They have, so Paying them what I would have paid somebody else to me was only the right and fair thing to do.
Absolutely, absolutely. Because I mean, for what it's worth, you know, folks have to be whatever. Whether you're talking about from the mainstream community, the Black community, Asian community, Indian community, you have to support your own. That's the only way that your economy is going to grow, and that is what everyone else does. And if we're going to grow the Black economic dollar, if we're going to get it to bounce multiple times, we have to be very deliberate and very intentional about doing business with folks so that we can have a community. So that when we ultimately are trying to, whether it's a son or a daughter or a niece or a friend of ours or someone
Hmm.
who needs a job, who's looking for an opportunity, we have to have businesses to go to that we can, one, produce jobs for our economy, two, produce wealth, for our economy. And there's no way for us to do that if we don't support that. Again, holding us accountable to a quality service, but we have to be responsible and accountable to growing our own economy because nobody else is going to do it.
That's true. That's absolutely correct, Tom. And another thing that you hit on, which we're going to sort of segue into, is how do we expect to be treated fairly to fight for civil rights and equal rights when so much of our money, our wealth is transferred out of our community? I remember our frat brother Tony Brown making the point that if we both have $100 and you give me 95 of your $100, I have $195 and you have $5, how could your neighborhood be as nice as mine? Hell, you say even your IQ can't be as high as mine when you give 95% of your money to other people. And that's exactly what we do, Tom, which is why we don't have what other people have. So we have to make more of a focus, like K-Mac, we have to make more of a focus to do business with other black-owned businesses in order to shift that away and to give ourselves a fighting chance. We can't just be consumers in America forever. At some point, we have to start growing wealth and transferring that wealth forward by the inheritance process from ourselves to our children.
I know we've talked about this before, Jimmy, but in terms of our spending just in the United States alone, is this somewhere between 1.4 and 1.6 trillion dollars?
Yes, it was, and 2 years ago it was 1.6. I'm not sure the number is going to come in for last year, but I'm thinking it's going to come in, somewhere between 1.4 and 1.6 trillion, which is a
Okay.
lot of money.
And we do the math on this. That's 1.4, 1.6 trillion dollars. There are, before the pandemic, there were
Right,
2 million businesses, give or take.
right.
Those 2 million businesses, depending on whose article you're reading, brought in $24 billion dollars compared to the $1.6 trillion dollars that we're spending.
Right.
Okay, let's do the math. We spend $1.6 trillion dollars. We
Yes.
have, before the pandemic, we had 2 million businesses that averaged, I don't know what the average was per business, but I don't believe it was I don't believe it was even $100,000
Yeah, most
per
of them are just carving out an
50,
income.
average of maybe 50 to sixty thousand
Right.
dollars per year. But our economy, our gross domestic product within the Black community of all those businesses add up to about 24, 25 billion, maybe a little bit less, maybe a little bit more, depending on whose article you're reading. But we're spending 1.6 trillion
Right.
dollars. There's something wrong with that.
Well, Tom, and if you analyze this a little closer, if you look at the Indian community, and we don't have anything against any Indian community, I mean East Indian, not American Indian.
Right.
They're a much smaller group than the black population, and their command of money is a lot less. But the amount of economic activity they generate is pretty much getting ready to pass our $1.6 trillion. Dollars. And the reason being is because so much of their money flips and replicates within their community multiple times before it leaves. So you have the ripple effect. So if $1 comes in and you continue to spend that $1 among yourselves and your group, then you can generate, I believe, they're on average for about 12 to 13 times before it leaves their community. And the Asian community in large, time in some areas, that money ripples 30 times. So just imagine, let's say if we took the low end of 5 times if we took $1.6 trillion coming in to our community, and then somehow had a ripple of 5 times, Tom, you're talking almost $8 trillion of economic activity. We'd be free tomorrow. There wouldn't
Yep.
be any more on your knees begging anybody for freedom. You'd be a super world economic powerhouse, juggernaut within America. I mean, $8 trillion make you the fifth or sixth largest economy in the world. You know, so
Holler, come on, holler if you hear me. I mean, 972-497-2280. There has to be someone out there listening right now, but you bring up a very good point. I was talking to a friend of mine a little bit earlier about this. It's like, it's real easy to change our trajectory
yes,
economically. The challenge is the behavior modification, changing your thought process, changing your behavior, and doing something different. So we talked about those 2 million businesses before the pandemic. Some of that obviously has gone away. Employing, I think, somewhere a little bit under 1 million employees. So you had 2 million, 2 million businesses, black owned businesses, most of them very small, employing about 900 and a little bit over 900,000 employees. Now, of course, you and I both know that there are 40, I know a little bit over 40 million black folks in America, right?
that we could find. Some are hiding from the child support services, but yeah, 40 million that we could find.
So 40 million that we can find, we're only employing maybe 2 to 3% of that. And so when we start talking about why are black folks employment or unemployment rate always twice that
Right.
of white America or mainstream America, well, there are your numbers right now. If we're 44 million, but we're only employing maybe a million of our folks, we don't control the factors that contribute to our own
We don't,
employment.
Tom.
And so when you start talking about Indian owned businesses in America, when you start talking about Asian owned businesses in America, there's a completely different conversation that you're having when you're generating, one, that much economic activity, two, you're generating that much employment for your own community.
Right. And Tom, one of my customers, I'm not going to mention their name, but they're Indian-owned business, very nice people. I mean, I've been to their house several times for dinner. I'm trying to get used to the food. But Tom, they're an accounting shop. They do, they do taxes. They do bookkeeping. They're CPAs. They may have maybe 30. Let me see, owner and his wife, and they have about 30 ladies working in there. Surprisingly, no guys, all women.
That's interesting.
Yeah, so there's about 30. And Tom, there's not one non-Indian in that shop. I mean, they primarily, most of their customers are Indian-owned companies.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not gonna say they only hire. I shouldn't say that because they've hired us, and I'm not Indian-owned. But I'm thinking if there was an Indian-owned company here locally that could service them, they probably would. That's not to say I don't want their business because I do. But the point is that when I look at Indian-owned businesses, Nigerian-owned businesses, a lot of ethnic owned businesses, Tom, they tend to hire people that look like them. And to some degree, even white people tend to hire people that look like them also.
Of
Who does
course.
so we have to understand that when we say advocate, if those 2 million black businesses would just hire one employee each, we would be at full employment in the black community. There wouldn't be any more unemployment among the black community because I believe 3% or 3.5% or 4%. There's always like 4% of a group that's always in transition, out of work, looking for
Right.
work. But so 96% is considered full employment. If every black business is hired just one employee, one black person, we'd be at full employment.
That's true, Jimmy. But the question is, where are you going to get the access to capital? You have to have working capital in order to do that. And unfortunately, our businesses, have the least amount of capital, or they're the least capitalized of the businesses that are out there in the market. So the question is, how do you get access to working capital so that you can hire those employees, so you can grow and scale your business? Obviously, you got to have some customers from someplace, but you
Right.
also have to have the money. So it's the chicken or the egg.
Well, Tom, I think part of it is the answer you gave earlier. Um, we have to start focusing more on great customer service, great customer support, and Tom, we have to recognize that black people are not poor.
No.
So
No,
don't avoid black areas thinking that's the last place I want to invest money because I'm not going to make any money down there. That is not true. We have a $1.6 trillion dollars to spend, and we have to find a way to make that 1.6 into 8, 9, 10 trillion dollars of economic activity. That's how the black businesses grow and get the capital that they need to expand and to hire. And so, and then the other thing, Tom, is the black middle class has to step up. I know we have 401ks and IRAs, we have investment funds that we put money into, but if you look at the success of the Western world, it's always built on investment. People coming together to pool their resources, to fund voyages around the world for them to go rape and pillage other areas and bring the wealth back, and we all split it up if you make it back home.
So let
So,
me ask you this: what I mean, again, the majority of the black middle class are corporate employees. So what would their role be in developing or growing the black economy? Because
Tom,
most of them are not entrepreneurs.
right,
Very
most
few.
of them are not. And so here's where the black middle class has to step up. We have to become the money class. We have to become the investor class, not just in Wall Street, but in Main Street or Martin Luther King Street Boulevard is where we have to start putting some of our money. So we've talked about this before, but I would like to see more people look at gathering up 100 people to start an investment club, put $20 a week, and you guys can raise $100,000 a year just for those $20. I'm not asking for your rent money. I'm not asking for your girlfriend money. I'm not just $20 a week. I mean, you can, make skip lunch one day a week, or skip going to the club and buying high end drinks and
Well,
buy well drinks.
there is the challenge, Jimmy, because
What?
I mean, when we look at the numbers,
Right.
when we look at the median net worth in America, and we look at the median net worth in the black community, the question is, where are you going to find the capital? The median net worth in
Tom,
America, I believe, is somewhere.
I
Wait,
can go. I can go to
median.
McDonald's.
Oh, I know.
I can
The
go find me a
median.
minimum wage person,
Mhm.
and I guarantee you, we can go over your budget, how you spend your money, and
You're right.
we can squeeze out $20 a week, Tom,
I know,
from the
Jimmy, but
poorest
wait a
person.
minute. I'm not disagreeing with you. Median net worth in America, in general, if we look at all classes of people, is
Like in
I
the
believe
50s.
about 100, 170, 100, depending on when you're taking. If you're talking about 2019, pre-pandemic, post-pandemic, we're probably talking about 170, 180,000. Median net worth in the black community, depending on whose article you read, is somewhere between maybe $17,000 and $25,000 of net worth median, somewhere in the middle.
Right.
But to your point, the question is, are you willing to give up some of that going out to eat at Papa Do's money? Are you willing to give up some of that liquor money? Are you willing to give up some of that cigar money? Are you willing to give up some of that going to the hair shop, going to the nail shop money
Right.
in order to build your nest egg? Maybe you're doing your hair at home, or maybe you are trading in a cigar or the liquor for some Kool-Aid. I don't know what it is, Jimmy, but we are the most
We're
prolific
consumers.
consumer spenders probably in the
Yes.
history of mankind.
And so when there's a recession, when other people turn the news on and someone says America's headed for a recession, other groups stop spending. They start holding on to their capital. Black people continue to spend, good time or bad. We keep the economy going.
Jimmy, how did that happen? Because let me tell you this. I remember growing up around my grandparents and my great grandparents, and
Right.
they didn't make very much money because my folks, they grew up in small rural town. My mother's side of the family, small rural town. My father's side of the family, very poor, but they knew how to pinch a penny.
They did,
What,
Tom.
what happened?
Um, my grandmother also grew up during that time. Did not graduate high school. Had 9 kids, but Tom ended up at her peak owning 14 houses that she rented out. Unfortunately, her kids didn't take care of them, and all of them fell apart, sucking
So
the
that's
money.
so that's the question. What happened, Jimmy?
Tom, I mean, life became easier for us. That's what happened. Because when you go back to our grandparents, great grandparents, when life was hard, they worked hard, they struggled, but they knew it wasn't impossible. They had a much tougher time, and they got more done and
Yes.
accumulated more. Tom, we have it easy compared to what they
Yes,
but I,
yes.
so and because we have such an easy life, our minds are not consumed on PlayStations and video games, chasing after men or women, going out, living the having the trappings of wealth without
Well,
having the underlying foundation of wealth.
you're right, Jimmy. I forgot about the club money. I said
Yeah.
cigar liquor, going out money, and here and there money. I forgot the club money.
So what would you rather do? Go to the club, dress up, spend 40, 50, $60 on these watered down drinks, the money that you really can't afford, or take that money, once a week, not all of it, take $20 of it, you and 100 other people. Tom, you raise $100,000 of capital every year. You can put that
Mhm.
into starting one new business every year. You have your own funding. You don't have to go borrow money from anybody or ask for it. And then you got 100 customers for that business because whatever money you don't have to run it. Find someone to invest in. There are people out there who want to open a restaurant, who want to open a butcher shop or a bakery, or want to do something, or just buy up some property and rent it out if you don't know what else to do with it. But every year, take your $100,000 and put it into the black community, and you know what? 20 years from now, you and your investor will be sitting on a wealth, an empire of wealth, and then other people see what you're doing, and they'll do the same thing. You don't need a forum. You don't need Wall Street. You can put your money on Martin Luther King Boulevard if you want to and get rich over time. So, and with $20 a week. So it's not. I don't like really talking about the capital thing because I understand how the game is rigged against us. So knowing that, let's find some other ways. Let's do what other people have done. Other people pool their money together, Tom. We are always trying to scrape money together as individuals, which is why we have such a difficult time. We have to come together as a group and put our money together as a group. So we have to get past the whole trust issue.
So, if I'm hearing you correctly, if we can overcome ourselves, I'm seeing at least three legs to this chair. I'm seeing one, you got to have well, we know how to be consumers. So that's one
Right.
part of
We know how
that.
to spend money.
But otherwise, we're becoming our own consumers as opposed to somebody else's consumer. So you have to have folks who can run a business, entrepreneurs. And I mean, true entrepreneurs, not as somebody with entrepreneurs, but entrepreneurs, not entrepreneurs,
Right.
entrepreneurs. You have to have investors because I
Right.
mean, folks who have the business mind may not have all the capital. So you have folks who fund the business, you have folks who run the business, and then you have folks who consume from the business. So I'm seeing at least a three-legged chair, at least. I may be missing one element, but you have to have money, you have to have people who can run a business effectively, and then you have to obviously have a consumer.
But Tom, the most important thing is we have to stop overlooking ourselves. We have money. Even the poorest person among us. Like I said, if you work a minimum wage job, I know you're struggling out there and it's hard. There are some areas you can't afford to live in, so you may live in a depressed area. I understand that. But even that person, Tom, I guarantee you, we could sit down and squeeze out $20 a week with the
Are
poorest
you, all
among
right.
us.
Are
So,
you trying to talk about the folks who they're living in a rat trap, but they got some expensive rims and they got them $100 tennis
yes.
shoes? Okay,
Or they got $2,000 worth of video games sitting on the PlayStation. I mean, those games are not cheap. Or you're walking
yeah, that's
around,
true.
your kids
I
are
I
walking
used to buy
around.
them.
You used to
I
buy them,
used to buy
okay?
them. I used to buy them.
Or your kids are walking around with $400 Air Jordan tennis shoes on.
Yeah,
Tom, I absolutely refuse to pay more than $30, $40 for
thank
tennis
you.
shoes. I'll pay
Well,
$100 for some good shoes,
yeah, yeah,
but
yeah.
but I draw the line on tennis shoes. I'm not gonna pay $200, $300 for no damn tennis shoes.
Well, Jimmy, I think the most I've paid for some, and they were running shoes, Jimmy. These weren't
Hmm.
tennis shoes. Running shoes were $60, $70. My dad always told me, make sure you put some good shoes on your feet because if you mess up your feet, that's it.
Well, that
So
is true.
I think I paid maybe 70 something dollars for some good running shoes. I jogged a lot, but you're right. I would not pay 150 $200 just for some style shoes, and I'm talking style shoes.
Right.
No,
Um,
never did it.
So, and it's not like I buy cheap shoes. I think I buy fairly decent shoes, but I look for places where I can get a good price. The same thing on my clothes. I don't go buy $1,500 suits. I mean, there are some $200 and $300 semi handmade suits that you can buy. You can still get them custom fitted. You can still get them tailored. to your body style without spending $1,500. I'm saying is
Right.
that when I go out and I see people who are sporting very expensive clothes, cars, and debt up to their head, can't miss a payment or a paycheck because the whole house of cards would collapse. You are over leveraged and underfunded.
Right.
And you need to
And
change
Jimmy,
that around.
and Jimmy, if you're gonna spend $200 on Nike or Adidas, buy the stock.
Yes, thank
Buy
you.
the stock.
Don't
And
buy
then
the
what you
tennis
can
shoes,
do,
buy the stock. Yes.
and you can buy the tennis shoes with the appreciation.
Hopefully, yes. Once you sell it and the price goes up, yes, you can buy the tennis shoes with the profit. Uh,
Absolutely.
but Tom, we have to stop overlooking ourselves and thinking that we're poor. If you have a poor mindset, if you think black people are poor, all I do is I would say this, and it's not to embarrass any church, but go down south in Dallas, in the area that I live in. Go look at Potter's House. Go look at Antioch. Go look at Oak Cliff Bible Fellowship. Go look at some of the other mega churches down there,
Yeah,
Friendship
yeah,
West.
yeah, yeah,
These are not small structures. It
yeah.
took millions of dollars to build. And if you can invest and somehow come up with millions of dollars because God told you to, I'm here to tell you also that last time I talked to God, He said He didn't want you to be poor. He wants you to take your money and start investing in yourself and,
Yeah,
and lift yourself out of this hell that you find yourself in. So if you don't do it for yourself, do it for your kids, do it for your grandkids. But start building some wealth today with the purpose of enriching yourself and to also make sure that your children and grandchildren are getting off to a good start.
that's true. I would agree. So, I mean, I know we have probably a few minutes before we have to close out, but so
We
the
we're gonna run till the top of the hour, so we're good. We have about another 15 minutes.
okay, good deal. But kind of getting to the original question. I mean, the original
Excuse me.
question, the black economy boom or bust. That's kind of it depends.
It depends.
It depends on where we go. It most importantly to me depends on what we've learned collectively from the last 160 years since our ancestors were freed, and it depends on what we've learned within the last couple of years because the economy goes in peaks and valleys. And our grandparents, great grandparents, they used to have this saying, you're always saving for a rainy day.
Right.
There is a lot of intelligence, even though they may not have had a formal education. There was a lot of intelligence in terms of what they were depositing in us when we were just kids.
Right.
And the reality of it is, Jimmy, we have got to invest inward. We have
We do,
got to
Tom.
we've got to bounce our dollars inwards as you mentioned a little bit earlier today. We have to be intentional in taking someone who we know provides a good service or sells a quality product and being intentional about scaling and growing their business, but at the same time holding them accountable to our community. We're going to invest in you so you can grow, but what we need you to do is to be accountable to our community
Correct.
and help someone else do the same thing.
That's absolutely correct, Tom. So, for example, I remember I had a starter home down in South Dallas many years ago, Tom, and the only store in that area was a little Meniere's. It said on Ledbetter and Bonneview, I believe. I don't know if it's still there or not. I think it's an auto parts store or something now. But Tom, you go in there and the milk was always going to expire the next day. Every can on the shelf was dented. It seemed like they took all of the near expiring products from the other stores and shipped it down to the store down in the black neighborhood, and people down there had no choice until Fiesta and a few other stores opened up down there, which even now, even the nice store down there is still not a place I go out of my way to shop in, Tom. And we have to do better than that. Our people deserve better than that. So, and we can't leave it up to the Minions or the Fiestas or anyone else to provide good services to our people if we're not willing to put our money into these areas. I also remember back when in the day when Kmart was going to leave South Dallas and Walmart Sam's that was down there off the freeway. I can't remember if it was 67 or 35. And the talk at that time was, what are we going to do to stop them? Tom, they left anyway. And
Right.
so any effort to stop them was futile. What we should have been doing was figuring out how to raise the capital among
Amen.
ourselves to go put something in there to replace it. Okay, so
Yeah.
now you have Big T Bazaar down there. I don't know who owns Big T Bazaar, but I don't see that many of our people down there. I've only been a few times. I haven't been a very long time, so hopefully things have changed. But I doubt that we're the brokers down
No,
there.
we're not. I don't believe so. I've been there. It's been. I usually used to go there maybe once or twice a year. There's a brother up in there who sells a lot of oils and paintings and some wardrobe and stuff like that. Real nice brother, African brother. And I would always go there at least a couple times a year just to get some oils or something from him, just to kind of invest in his business. But most of the people there who were at least leasing that space did not look like him. There were a few, but not very many. Most of them were Asian or Indian. There were a few white folks there, but not very many black folks. And that's in the middle of the hood.
And Tom, that's not just Big T. That's indicative of the hood. Period. You know,
Right.
the Asian Indian population probably have more business and generate more economic activity, and that money is money being sucked out of your community. You're not being used to hire your people that look like you. It's not
Right.
even being invested back into your community for projects or any social good. That's money, once those profits are sucked out of your community, and once it's gone, it's gone. Tom, you can't spend money but once. So,
True.
excuse me. So anyway, we have to have a more of a focus, Tom, on controlling the economics of our neighborhoods. You know, and
How do we do that, Jimmy? Because I mean, for what it's worth, most people look around. They live where they live. None of the businesses are owned by people who look like them. They still got to get groceries. They still got to get
right.
gas. They still have to, consume services. So what do you do?
Well, Tom, once again, the black middle class has to step up. We have a caller.
Yes, we do. Wait just a second. Black men speak. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good, brother.
Good.
Tommy is Ray Hodges. How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good, man. Hey, I appreciate you joining Black Men Speak. We've been talking about the black economy and the black community. We appreciate you calling in. What are your thoughts today?
Man, first of all, I apologize. I'm so late.
No, you're good.
But can't find my headset. I'm just gonna hold my phone. So, a few things, and you all probably have already covered this, but the first thing that jumps out at me is the amount of money that the black consumer spends in the U.S.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, we
What is
talked
it,
about that
1.2,
1.6 trillion, give or take.
trillion?
Mhm.
Yeah. So what's interesting about that is, and you guys probably already covered this as well, so forgive the redundancy, but when you think about the fact that we only spend 2% of that in the black community,
Mhm.
the president of One United Bank, and my wife and I have, we intentionally opened an account with her, and she uses a lot of statistics that that are really, really thought provoking. So she says, if we could move that 2% spending to 10%, we could create 1 million jobs in our own community.
Now,
Wow.
when you say
Right.
move that 2% to 10%, it kind of break that down for us. How does that
Spend
work? When
more.
you say
Spend
move
more
from
with black businesses.
So at this point, of the 1.x amount of trillion that's being spent,
Gotcha,
on black
1.6.
consumers,
So we're only spending 2% with black owned businesses, is what you say.
Right. Right.
exactly,
Gotcha.
exactly.
It
And
fluctuates, but it's
what
always
she
less than
says,
5%.
is that if we could merely move that to 10%,
Okay.
then we would effectively create 1 million jobs in our own community. And like when you think about, the state of our community, and when it comes to self-determination, and I know everybody knows this, right? It's a no-brainer. Everything we need, we have.
Right.
Have y'all heard the expression? We all we got, we
Yeah.
all we need.
Right.
We have the means, but there are behaviors that we have to adopt, right? I'll say this one more thing, and I'll let you guys get back to it. In recent months and recent years, there's been these conscious efforts
for people to start like consciously and intentionally spending money with Black businesses. And I think that slowly but surely, it feels like there is some momentum there. And so I think we're moving in that direction, but we have to all encourage each other to do it. What I've found is, and this is something that I think we all could try to remember, pretty much every product that we purchase can be purchased from a Black business at this point. I mean, every product, right? I think they have a website called We Buy Black, and you can get everything down to toilet paper, light bulbs, washing powder, and I've purchased all those things already, so that's why I know. That's why I'm naming those things. But you can buy all those things from Black businesses. So just imagine if we would encourage one another to at least start trying to do that.
So
that's my comment, man. I appreciate the time.
Oh no, we thank you. And
thank you so much.
And you said We Buy Black, so it's almost like a miniature Amazon.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Exactly.
Okay, very good. Well, hey, we appreciate you calling. We appreciate your contribution. We're gonna have to have you on the show live very soon.
Let's do it. Thank you, guys, and I appreciate what you all are doing. I really do.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Ray.
All right, brother.
Bye. All right.
So, Ray, thank you so much for calling in. Very good points. There were a few points, Tom, that we had already talked about, hit on. But that's okay, though. We can go back and revisit. But I like the way he thinks, and he makes a very good point. If we just shift a small amount, we're not talking about a major amount. We're not talking about the 1.6. Right. You know, we're talking a few hundred million of the 1.6 trillion. If you shift that inward towards Black businesses, I like that point that you can create 1 million jobs. You know, we would be at full employment and can be off our knees and on our way to freedom, which is what God wants for us tomorrow if we would just make the change. That and become a little more savvy about how the business world works. And then on the other thing, Tom, is that if we are spending more money within inward, like you talked about, we don't necessarily have to play by their rules anymore. We can make our own damn rules and create our, because we become the new game at that point. Trust me, when people want to make money and they know that you have it and you're generating wealth, they will modify their thinking to adjust and become in sync with you rather than you have to be in sync with them to make money.
That's true. And I think that, you know, this is kind of going back into the 60s when we're talking about Malcolm, or even we go back to the early 20th century, we talk about Marcus Garvey. You know, once you begin to build your economic power, that's going to generate social power. And when you generate that social power, that is going to engender political power.
That's correct, Tom. And like I said, we talked about this before the show about how our ancestors got a lot more done in very difficult times. Marcus Garvey, a publisher, had a nationwide print distribution time back when, at a time, this would be very difficult to get off the ground. And to bring people together and for people to then pool their resources to get things done, and then to buy shipping a large shipping boat to move things around with the thought of trading internationally.
Right.
Tom, I mean, we have some wealthy Black folks who could come up with the money to buy a large shipping ship today. But rather than put $30 or $40 million into a couple of shipping boats to trade back and forth with other brown and Black countries around the world, they'd rather spend $30 million on a super yacht where only one person is going to ride around in and have fun in. I mean, that's just that's where we are. And then folks are so proud that this celebrity has some 200-foot super yacht for themselves and that they party on. We are proud of the wrong stuff, Tom. That should be an embarrassment to us. You can go buy, spend $40 million on a yacht just for you, but you won't put $40 million into a couple of shipping vessels so to facilitate trade between the Black community here and Black folks around the world. I mean, but that's how we think, though.
Yep. So, I mean, again, the biggest hurdle is really facing you in the mirror. And
Yes.
once we overcome that obstacle and once we overcome that hurdle, I believe everything else becomes a lot easier. Your decisions become a lot more intentional and you begin to produce the results that you're looking for. Because, no one of us is any greater than all of us, regardless of how much money or wealth you think you may have. You only have social power in groups. You only have social power in unity. You can be the only, wealthy person on your block. But if you are the only wealthy person that looks like
Right.
you on your block, you don't have any social power in America.
Correct. And the other thing, Tom, is we're gonna have to spiritualize this, man. When we got through slavery, with God, putting the spirit in us, and giving us strength to endure. We got through Jim Crow, the black codes, the pig laws, the same way. We fought injustice in America and still fighting injustice in America. But Tom, we are a spiritual people. We are a communal people.
That's
We
true.
have to use our strength, which is us coming together as a family. And I know we're spread out now. A lot of us live in the suburbs, all different places. But we have to find a way to come back together, not just in church time, but socially, understanding that this is what God wants us to do. And how do I know this, Tom? Because we wouldn't be a communal people if that wasn't the case. God wouldn't
Right.
make us to be this way if He didn't want us to come together. So, and on top of that, we've always been a very God fearing people. We have to get back to being God fearing people and understand that it's not that God just wants us to build mega churches. He wants us to come together, Tom, and free ourselves. We were not put through all this hell in order to end up back in hell in America. We were put through all of this to strengthen our bodies and our souls and our resolve to one day receive the promise of being caretakers of the world. So we have to understand that we are the mother and fathers of humanity. It is our responsibility to care for the world, not white folks. Stop thinking that this is their world and you're just a guest in it. You're not. You are the caretakers of this world. You have a responsibility. So this is why people keep you down, because they don't ever want you to reach your full potential. But despite what they want, we have to step our game up, Tom, and understand what God wants for us. We have to spiritualize this whole effort.
That's true, Jimmy. And when we say spiritualize, we don't mean spiritualize as in going to the church. And of course, I
Nothing against
advocate.
going to church.
Yeah, and I advocate for strengthening our churches because they, in essence, have really been the centerpiece of the Black community. Since obviously, before we came out of slavery, and since we've came out of slavery, and that
Yes.
is where a lot of the development of our leaders in our community. But that ministry has to go beyond the church and it has to go out into our communities if we're truly going to have anything long term. And at the end of the day, that investment that we're willing to make, within the confines of the church community, we have to be able to make in ourselves as well.
Yes, Tom, and I would suggest that the pastors around the world and the bishops and whoever else start preaching. I mean, believe it or not, Tom, a big chunk of the Bible deals with money issues.
Yes, it does.
It's not like we're saying do something that's foreign to what God wants you to do. A lot of the Bible speaks about money, so I'm here to say, and we're going to include in our prayers tonight also, that God does not want you to be poor.
No.
And you don't become rich by giving to the church. It's okay to build up a church, but at some point you got to start building up your community and start building up yourself and building wealth for yourself, your children, and your grandchildren. That is your legacy. You owe it to those that come after you. So stop trying to live beyond your means and take it all with you to the grave and start thinking about leaving something behind for someone else.
That's very true, Jimmy. At the end of the day, unfortunately, what a lot of people lean on is that there are some churches and some ministries that kind of always lean on this money is the root of all evil. And a lot of folks, take that one thing and pervert it. And unfortunately, it has done a number on our community economically in terms of everything else that you read in the Bible that when it comes to wealth and prosperity. Now, I'm not talking about prosperity preaching. I'm not talking about naming and claiming. I'm not talking about all
Right.
that. But, when you look at the most prolific personalities in the Bible, Abram, David, Solomon,
Hmm.
all of these were great men.
With wealth.
Uh, Absolutely. And they were all very prosperous, which means they were all very wealthy. So there's nothing wrong with building wealth. There is something wrong with lust. There is something
Right.
wrong in exploiting people. but there is nothing wrong with being prosperous.
Well, Tom, nothing wrong with being prosperous. Nothing wrong with building wealth to protect yourself, to protect your children, protect your
Absolutely.
grandchildren. Because by giving them, I'm going to give you one example. I know we're almost out of time, but I like telling stories about my life, as you guys know. Uh, when I started off in technology 30 some plus years ago, I was I worked as a consultant at Frito Lay. Didn't make much money, and the guy that I was working with, I lived in Oak Cliff at the time, in a little starter home, 3 bedrooms, 1 bath, and he lived in Stonebriar, and we made the same amount of money. And so when I asked him, I was like, "Well, how do you afford a $600,000 home over in Stonebriar?" Well, he said his parents or her parents gave them $400,000 for a down payment on the home. So he was only looking at having to finance another
200.
$200,000, and even with that time, they struggled to put furniture in the house. But
Mm,
my point is that I'm looking at my life. My parents didn't pass me 400 grand for a home. If they had, I'd buy 4 or 5 homes with that money rather
right.
than one big home. But that's another story. But my point is that we always think that the inequities of life are because of color, and it's not always a color issue. When his father-in-law and mother-in-law can advance them 400 grand, and he and I make the same amount of money, but he lives in Stonebriar and I live in Oak Cliff. Yeah, there are some inequities in life, of course, his life to mine, if you just compare apples to apples. But the reality is that he didn't get his advantage simply because he was white. He got his advantage because he married somebody who had some money.
Yeah, that's true. He married well, obviously.
He married well. So, but sorry. But the point is, Tom, we have to start looking to help our kids get off to a start like that also. When they starting off in life, they may need money for a down payment on a house or to get them set up. Don't let them go out and get indebted up to their necks with a payment, a car payment, and everything else. And then, if they miss one payment, they lose a job, miss a paycheck, the whole house of cards collapse in on them.
That's
So,
true. I mean, at the end of the day, Jimmy, we should be operating in a state of affairs where our children. Now, don't get me wrong. I think that there has been kind of a double-edged sword, on some of the last generation of parents raising their children and protecting them from everything. I think that's to a certain degree done some harm. But your children should not be doing worse than you are. They should be
right.
doing better than you are, which means there should be a transfer of some wealth to them so that they can get a faster start so they can do better so that their children can do better so your grandchildren are doing better. So when we start talking about wealth, we're talking about land,
Right.
we're talking about home ownership, we're talking about real estate, we're talking about equity, we're talking about even intellectual capital, know-how. I
Right.
mean, folks who are very good at whether that's running business or accounting or whatever it is their area of expertise is, you know, sharing and transferring that intellectual capital is just as important as sharing the tangible wealth, the real estate,
Because
the
Tom,
business,
because if
the
you
land,
don't do
etc.
it, if you don't do what you just said, if you just give somebody money and transfer it to them, and they don't have the mental capacity
The
to grow
know-how.
that even more so than what you had, then all they're going to do is spend it. If that's all they know to
Absolutely.
do. So you have to teach them, about money, how to make money work for you. And I can tell if you have to choose between working for money and having money work for you, I'm gonna tell you, there's nothing like having money work for you. Trust me on
Amen.
that one. Yeah,
Amen.
when that money comes in, you like that you didn't have to work for, that somebody else is out there, doing the work, even if you just invest in a business or a stock, but money that you didn't have to work for that's working for you, there's nothing like it, Tom. It becomes
No,
very
sir.
addictive, man. So you're right. We have to do all the things to teach our offspring about how to make this and grow this. If I give you $10,000, I expect you to have 100,000. At some point in your life for you to pass on to your children.
Right.
Don't
And
know.
and they need to show you that they are responsible
Right.
with what they're giving you before you give them more of it.
If I
So they
give
won't blow
if
it.
I give you the money, you just go out there and buy you a car with it, and it's gone. Oh well, I can't do that again. So because
Absolutely.
the system is breaking down. Hey, Tom, we're at the top of the hour now,
Yes,
man.
sir.
We need to
All
go ahead and
right.
close it out. Um,
Okay.
and you know how we do it here. Let's close it out with a
Yep.
prayer.
All right, folks. If we could bow, dear Lord and gracious Father, we come before you again, thanking you for bringing us together, thanking you for harmony, thanking you for unity, thanking you, Father, for instilling within us everything that we need in order for us to be everything that you need us to be. Continue to keep our minds focused on you, the things, Father, that you have created for us and that you have laid out to us. We thank you again, Father, and in your precious name we pray for everything that you have done and are going to do. Amen.
Amen. And a big shout out to C-Mac and Ray for calling in on the show.
Absolutely. Thank you
Yeah,
so much.
yeah. Thank you so much. Please come back next week. And Tom, we're going to see if we can't look in our war chest and see if we can't scrape up some kind of a gift to show our appreciation for C-Mac and Ray. We'll see what we can come up with. You guys are going to
All
come
right.
back next week in order to claim it, though.
All right.
All
That'll
right.
work.
So we're out.